Thank you all very much for being here. Thank you, Joe, for the introduction. It's wonderful to be with you. I want to start today talking about the 14th anniversary of NAFTA, because this is not an anniversary that we should celebrate. What NAFTA is a perfect living, breathing example of what happens when big corporate power gets exactly what they want. And that's exactly what happened with NAFTA. We've lost over 1 million American jobs as a result of NAFTA. NAFTA had provisions in it like Chapter 11 that actually gave companies the power to bring legal action against the government when the government was trying to protect its citizens with health regulation, with safety regulation, with environmental regulation. Chapter 11 makes absolutely no sense. This is an example of what we should not have in NAFTA and in trade deals. And beyond that, it's interesting because it tells you a lot about the mentality of people in Washington, the way they describe these trade deals, including NAFTA. They say, well, this is be good for America, and it's okay if there are some losers. Losers. That's the way they describe hardworking middle-class families who are hurt by these trade deals. You know, our responsibility is to stand up for hardworking middle-class families, not to call them losers, and to give them a chance to have a better life. And I take the devastating consequences of these trade deals, particularly NAFTA, very personally, because my father worked in mills for 37 years to give me a better life. My grandparents worked in mills, and I saw what happened when the mill in my hometown closed. What it did to families, what it did to the community, and I've seen what it's done right here in your state, in Groveton, in Berlin. I've seen what's happened when the mills closed, and what it did to the communities there. It's had devastating consequences here in New Hampshire and in North Carolina and in other places across America. I can tell you we will have a different trade policy when I am President of the United States. That trade policy will be any proposed trade deal. The question will be, is this actually beneficial and helpful to working middle-class families? And if it doesn't meet that test, it will not be signed into law. That's the test that we should have been applying instead of NAFTA and these other deals where the only test was, is this good for the profits of big corporations? Unfortunately, that test has applied to far too many things in the way the government has operated. And it's not just loss of jobs. It's not just the damage to middle-class families. There are also huge safety issues. I mean, we have these dangerous Chinese toys that have come into the United States. We got American families right now going out and doing their holiday shopping, worried that they're going to bring something dangerous that came from China into their children's lives. We have pharmaceutical products. 75–80% of the drugs that are being sold in this country are being, the pieces of those drugs are being manufactured in other places with very little regulation, very little control. This makes absolutely no sense. It's not just an economic issue, although it is a huge economic issue. It's also a safety issue. It's also about ensuring that our children are safe and our families are safe. And on that subject, by the way, it is time for this woman who's in charge, presently in charge, Nancy Nord, in charge of the Consumer Product Safety Commission, to resign. The last thing we is somebody who was an industry lobbyist put in charge of making sure that consumer products are safe. You know, talk about putting a fox in charge of the hen house. This makes absolutely no sense. And she did all these trips that were sponsored by the industry, all these trips that were paid for by the industry. She just needs to be gone. I mean, this gets to be a very simple thing at the end of the day. NAFTA and this anniversary is symbolic of the way the government is not working for middle-class families. The way the government has become controlled by a few very powerful moneyed interests. And you can see it every single day. And I'm like many of you, I take this very personally.